In the open blue wilderness of the ocean, where sharks dart like missiles and whales bellow in the depths, there drifts a creature unlike any other. It doesn't swim so much as it flies, soaring with impossible grace just beneath the waves. At a glance, it looks like a giant bird flattened by evolution. Its wings spread more than 7 meters across, slicing silently through tropical currents. But look closer, and you'll see something stranger. A creature with the largest brain of any fish. A creature with memory, curiosity, social coordination, and even, perhaps, self-awareness. This is no mindless filter feeder. This is the manta ray. Neither shark nor whale, neither predator nor prey. The manta ray is one of evolution's most spectacular contradictions. It is massive but gentle, ancient yet intelligent, and it thrives not in hiding, but in the most exposed ecosystems on Earth, gliding openly through sunlight and seawater like a living spaceship. But how did a close cousin of the bottom-feeding stingray evolve into a soaring giant of the sea? Why does it have the brain power of some birds and mammals, despite eating nothing but plankton? How does a fish without a skeleton of bone, and without a single tooth, become the most ecologically important creatures in the ocean? And what exactly does it mean for the manta ray to possibly recognize itself in a mirror? To answer that, we have to explore one of the most mysterious, elegant, and mind-bending lives in the animal kingdom, starting more than 400 million years ago. A deep time origin story. The manta ray is a cartilaginous fish, part of the class which also includes sharks, skates, and other rays. But to find its true roots, we must travel back to a time before dinosaurs even roamed the Earth, about 420 million years ago, when the seas were ruled by armored jawless fish and the first primitive sharks emerged. The early vertebrates didn't have bones as we know them now. Instead, their skeletons were made of cartilage, lighter, more flexible, and less durable than the calcified frameworks of future fish. One lineage of these cartilaginous pioneers, the elasmobranchs, gave rise to sharks and rays, and somewhere along the evolutionary branch, the ancient bottom-dwelling ray took a leap, literally and figuratively, off the seafloor. Over tens of millions of years, that bottom-hugging ray unfurled its fins, evolved a flat, disc-shaped body, and learned to glide not by flapping, but by flying. This leap turned a ground scavenger into a pelagic marvel. Modern manta rays first appear in the fossil record around 25 million years ago, but their closest relatives, the mobile rays, go back even further. Mantas are the largest members of this group, but despite their size and majesty, they are still widely misunderstood. For decades, scientists assumed that they were just giant filter feeder kites, drifting passively and guided only by instinct. But research in the last 15 years has shattered that idea. Mantas aren't just gliding wings of flesh. They're thinking, social, problem-solving animals, and their biology reflects it. A body built for silent flight. The anatomy of the manta ray seems custom-built not for a fish, but for a machine engineered by water itself. Unlike most marine mammals, mantas don't use their tails for propulsion. In fact, these tails are thin and nearly useless, sometimes lacking even the stinging barbs seen in stingrays. Instead, all their power comes from their pectoral fins, massive triangular wings that span up to 7 meters in the giant manta species. These fins undulate like wings of the bird or the flippers of the penguin, allowing the manta to fly through the water with a gliding, hypnotic motion that leaves almost no turbulence in its wake. But these wings are not simple flaps of muscle. Inside, the cartilage is arranged by elaborate patterns that provide strength without weight, giving the manta the largest surface area to mass ratio of any large fish. They also possess 2 unique lobes on either sides of their mouth, cephalic fins, which curl and uncurl to funnel plankton-rich water into their gills. When hunting, these lobes unfurl like horns, giving the manta its signature devilfish silhouette. But in function, they are more like flaps on an aircraft, guiding water, steering movement, and fine-tuning feeding. To filter food, mantas use a technique called cross-flow filtration, a method so advanced that has inspired bioengineers to redesign human water filters. Unlike whale sharks, which rely on sieve-like structures, manta rays use rows of spongy plates that create vortexes, allowing water to pass through while trapping particles as small as 50 microns. They can process over 90 cubic meters of seawater per hour while swimming. That's more than the volume of a backyard swimming pool, filtered by a fish with no bones, no teeth, and no paws. The fish with a massive brain. Among the 33,000 species of fish, only one has evolved a brain so large it begins to resemble a mammal's. The manta ray has the largest brain-to-body ratio of any known fish, and not just in terms of size, but complexity. Studies have shown that the giant manta's brain weighs over 100 grams, with exceptionally developed regions associated with learning, memory, and problem-solving. This includes a well-developed cerebellum and a large telephalion, structures often linked to sensory integration and decision-making in birds and mammals. In 2016, researchers at Macquarie University in Australia conducted a mere self-recognition test on manta rays, a classic experiment used to assess self-awareness. When presented with a mirror, the mantas didn't treat the reflections as other mantas. They didn't display aggression, curiosity, or submission, behaviors expected if they thought the image was another individual. Instead, they performed rapid, repetitive movements in front of the mirror, twisting, flapping, and inspecting their body parts they normally couldn't see. These behaviors are consistent with what chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, and magpies have done when passed the same test. It was the first hint that manta rays could be capable of metacognition, the ability to think about thinking. To this day, only a handful of non-human animals have shown similar results. All of them are primates, cetaceans, or corvids. All of them are considered among the smartest creatures on Earth. And now, the ray. Social minds in the open ocean. For decades, marine scientists believed that manta rays were solitary drifters, passing each other in the blue like ships in the night. But new tagging, drone, and observation studies are revealing something more complex. Mantas have social lives. They form stable groups. They revisit cleaning stations. They exhibit distinct personalities. Some are bold, others shy. In feeding frenzies, they coordinate movements in spirals and chains, adjusting their wing beats to avoid collision while maximizing food intake. At certain times of the year, dozens or hundreds gather in what researchers call mating trains. Males follow females in long chains, each attempting to match her speed, anticipate her turns, and prove its worth through endurance. But unlike many fish species where mating is a split-second act, manta mating can last for hours, requiring cooperation, patience, and precision. And perhaps in the most astonishing discovery of all, female mantas show signs of individual mate choice. They return preferred males across seasons. They avoid previous suitors who harass them. This kind of sexual agency is rare in fish and suggests complex memory and social awareness. In the vast openness of the ocean, where structures are few and hiding places are rare, the manta's mind may be its most important survival tool. Giants without armor. In a world where the laws of survival often reward the sharpest teeth, the thickest armor, or the most aggressive temper, the manta ray is a paradox. It has no stinger, no speed to outrun predators, no school to disappear in. And unlike most cartilaginous fish, its skin is not covered in protective denticles, the tiny tooth-like scales that give sharks sandpaper texture. Instead, mantas glide through the ocean nearly naked, covered in a smooth, velvet-thin skin that can be damaged by a careless touch. So how does an animal so seemingly defenseless not just survive, but thrive? The answer lies in its size, strategy, and symbiosis. The giant manta ray can weigh over 1,300 kilograms, nearly the mass of a full-grown bison. And over 7 meters across, they are too big for most predators to challenge. Only the largest tiger sharks and orcas pose a threat. And even then, adult mantas have been known to evade or even ram attackers using their wings. But brawn alone isn't their only defense. Mantas have evolved a curious reliance on reef-dwelling cleaner fish. At specific sites known as cleaning stations, mantas hover motionless while wrasses, butterfly fish, and cleaner gobbies pick parasites and dead skin from their bodies. These cleaning rituals may last several minutes and involve precise positioning, as mantas rotate to present different parts of their bodies. What makes this even more remarkable is that mantas remember. They return to the same cleaning stations year after year, navigating across hundreds of kilometers of open ocean to find a patch of reef no bigger than a living room. They're not just cleaning, they're navigating, they're remembering. And in doing so, they define the notion that the brain the size of a limit cannot hold a map the size of the ocean. The reproductive riddle. Manta rays have perhaps one of the strangest reproductive strategies of any large ocean vertebrae. First, they don't lay eggs. Like sharks and some reptiles, mantas are ovipolarious, meaning the embryos develop inside eggs within the mother's uterus. But instead of being laid externally, the eggs hatch internally. The mother then gives birth to live, fully formed pups, usually one at a time. Occasionally 2 are born, but litters larger than that are extremely rare. Each pregnancy lasts about a year, and females may only reproduce one every 2 to 5 years, a shockingly slow rate for an animal that lives in such dynamic environments. And here's the evolutionary kicker. The pup, when born, is already about 1.5 meters across. That's the size of a full-grown bottlenose dolphin. For scale, this would be like a human mother giving birth to a 10-year-old child. So why go through all this trouble for one pup? Because in the ocean, size is survival. A large pup can feed, swim, and avoid predators almost immediately. And manta mothers, with no maternal care to offer post-birth, invest everything up front, growing one robust, ocean-ready child every few years, rather than dozens of helpless larvae. It's not fast, it's not prolific, but it works. Until, of course, it doesn't. Hunted by curiosity. Despite their size, agility, and sheer size, manta rays are now in deep trouble, not because of natural predators, but because of us. In the past 2 decades, global demand for manta gill plates, used in traditional Chinese medicine, have surged. Fishermen in Indonesia and other parts of Southeast Asia have begun targeting mantas specifically for this trade. Despite no scientific evidence of any health benefits, the dried gill plates are marked as detoxifiers, fetching hundreds of dollars per kilogram. The result has been catastrophic. In regions where mantas were once abundant, their numbers have dropped more than 80%. And because they reproduce slowly, even moderate levels of fishing can push populations into irreversible collapse. But it's not just targeted hunting that threatens them. Climate change is disrupting the plankton blooms they depend on. Boat strikes, plastic pollution, and entanglement in fishing gear claim countless lives each year. Ironically, their greatest asset, their boldness, their curiosity, their claim approachability, makes them easier to kill. But it also makes them unforgettable. Intelligence beyond the spine. For centuries, humans have placed a hierarchy on intelligence. Mammals on top, birds a rung below, fish somewhere near the bottom. And for a long time, it made sense. Mammals had big brains, warm blood, flexible social systems. Fish were cold, instinctual, and simple. But the manta ray breaks that ladder. It forces us to reckon with a creature that, despite being a fish, exhibits planning, play, cooperation, and perhaps even a sense of itself. It invites us to consider that intelligence is not linear, that evolution can carve into vastly different forms in vastly different environments. Mantas don't need to be like dolphins or chimps to be smart. They are smart in their own way, fluid, hydrodynamic, and quiet. And in that silence, we hear something profound. That consciousness, however it began, didn't stop at the shoreline. The ghost of the current. Manta rays may be the closest thing nature has created to an angel. Not in a theological sense, but in form, in motion, and in mystery. They glide without flapping, turn without struggle, feed without killing, and think without boasting. They live in a world of constant flow, neither resisting it nor dominating it, but mastering it. And perhaps that's why we've overlooked them for so long. They are not loud, they do not perform, they simply are. But now, as their numbers fall and their habits shrink, we are left with a choice: to protect a creature we barely understand, or lose one of the ocean's greatest experiments in biological elegance. The manta ray teaches us that strength doesn't require aggression, that intelligence doesn't require hands, that beauty does not require noise, and maybe, just maybe, that some of evolution's finest work is found in not fire or fangs, but in silence, in salt, and in the shadow of a wing passing beneath the sea.